I'll try and grab there's Alan from Scotland. It's a long distance call hanging on there. Are you there, Alan? Hello.
Hi there, it's Adam actually. It's obviously the Scottish accent that's confused them.
It's confused them, okay, that's right.
Yeah, obviously it's a pleasure to speak to you, Alan, as usual. I've got a question on the hierarchy of this elite. I mean, it's obvious there's certainly elite that's running the show. There's absolutely no doubt about that as far as I'm concerned. Anyone that's not conditioned can see that. I've got a question on the hierarchy of the elite.
Yeah.
Do you think that the top of this elite is the heads of these world banking families?
They're definitely closer to they're definitely closer to the top, and you can find evidence that in Frankfurt, for instance, in the 1700s, and then later in the 1800s, the top bankers there and moneylenders for the nations did have a club, and they had their meetings. They elected their own chairman by themselves and so on, and they did decide the future naturally because they dealt with all economies. They were deciding the future then of countries and deliberating who they should fund for war. If this country lost, could they pay back their debts and so on. Well, it's never really changed. So whenever you get economics and money and borrowing, you're always going to have the same bunch at the top. And they definitely are interbred, though. There's no doubt about it. And if they're not the top, they're much closer to it. They have to be. There's so much perfect coordination between all the factors that create society as we know it today, and shape the generations that are coming out of university now with all their greening. They truly are fanatical now. They've been radicalized. And they're all ready for the collectivist society and the total socialist system. So it's so perfect. There's definitely a big hierarchy, but there's also so many think tanks working at the top, and each think tank has its own specialist area, and then they all come together at the United Nations and all the different departments, and then all the countries sign the agreements and put it into law, all from education to everything, from economics to education. So it's so incredibly vast. You'll never know exactly who's behind it. Sometimes they give little clues away about the clubs that are higher up there. Prince Charles has called himself at one time, mind you, a lot of crazy things as well, but not surprised from him. But he did say he was one of the Olympians. Now the Olympians, as you know, were the gods of ancient Greece. And they used the Olympian Club is a very high art membership society that certainly has a lot of input in running the world even today. These are very rich families, very old genealogies, and they're definitely up there, but perhaps not at the top of the tree, but they're closer to it. I don't think you'll ever see the real people in public. They'll be incredibly rich. Every top politician or prime minister or president will know their names, but I don't think you'll ever find their names in the newspapers. They don't work. They make suggestions, and all the little minions beneath them run to it, make sure things are done, but they never actually give orders as such. When you see a Rockefeller attending world meetings, he's still working. So even though he's high on the hog and he's pushing all the socialist agendas, transhumanism, everything, transsexualism, the whole lot, kit and caboodle, he's still a worker basically. So you can imagine how these guys at the top really are.
Yeah, well, that seems to be the case. And anytime you see any United Nations or any kind of think tanks, there's always the same, as far as I can see, the same families that are controlling that. But obviously I don't know who's absolutely the peak. As you said, it's probably very difficult to determine that.
The big trick too, the big trick as well is to follow both lineages, the male lineage and the female lineage. And that's what confuses us, not to them, because they have their own little clubs that have their lineages and keep it all in order for them. They all know who they are. But as I say, you have to get both lineages to find out exactly who they are, and any name changes at all as well. And they can also adopt certain ones into their families, as the Rothschilds have done as well. But hang on, I'll be back after this break.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
Hi folks, we're back and we're cutting through the matrix. Is Alan still on the line? Or Adam, I should say, from Scotland. Is he still there?
Still here.
Yes. I was going to say too, another thing to notice too, Scotland, you'd be surprised at the amount of people have come out of Scotland and done a lot of meddling with this world order. I mean, the University of Aberdeen has always been one of the leading universities for communism and socialism for the world, you know. And the whole idea of solidarity was invented by those guys. And then you find this other odd thing too, is that, you know, that the royal family in London, they always have their cupbearers and special bearers for this and so on. Well, it's always been a Scotsman, the Campbell family, Lord Campbell, who've been in charge of the Great Seal of England. They carry the Great Seal of England for the English. No one's ever explained this strange relationship of certain families, and even from countries that you think are outside of the main country, that there are actually characters in places like Scotland that have more power than most of the English. It's never ever been explained. Yeah.
Absolutely, and as far as I can see, for such a small country, the amount of corruption in this country over the years is incredible. For the size of the country, it's tied in big time to the elite families of the day. Anyway, there's no doubt about that. But obviously, the working class are obviously different. We're not aware of that.
They're not aware at all. They don't even know in Argyllshire where the Campbells are. That's Lord Campbell again. You have these Templar graves all over the place because when they escaped from France, that's where they went. And so the Knights Templars were big. Of course, they were the big bankers of their day. And that's where the word check comes from. They gave out the first checks back in the 11th century and 12th centuries. They gave out checks in lieu of money. And because they planned, like the Exchequer, there was a chessboard outside, a checkerboard outside in the city of London. That's where they did all their financial arrangements, debts and profit and so on. And that's why they called it a check. And that's why we spell it in Britain differently from America. It's actually from checkerboard, yeah. So they settled in the Highlands there, in the Western Highlands, and they always took the sides of a united Britain. They always went against all the rest of the Scots. And the Lord Campbells. So it's interesting that they're definitely way up high in the tree there, and intermarried with a lot of other foreign bigwigs in other countries as well. And Scotland also gave them the Bank of England. You know, it was a Scotsman that came down from Callendar and created the whole idea of the Bank of England. And then, of course, they just sat and waited until Rothschild came along and took it over. But the Scotsman set it up for them. Then another Scotsman was sent over to France, and that created the French bubble by doing the same thing there, by creating a bank for France as well. So there's always been this amazing secret society stuff within Scotland. The Knights Templar, and then later on down through the years you have the Masons coming forward, of course, and it's definitely all tied together somehow, yeah.
That's incredible. I realised that most of that was true. I didn't realise the check part you were saying. That's incredible, actually. It originated there. That's
originally, yeah. Yeah, the Templars used to take in the gold coin and so on. Even had the Treasury of England. They were in charge of taking it in their own little special place where they guarded it. And you could go to the Middle East, they give you a check, literally a check, because as I say, they did it on the open air chessboard. It was a big thing. They used poles and pushed these checkers along the black and white squares. And they give you a check and say that's where your money is now, symbolizing their vault. And they give you a check in lieu, and you took it to the Middle East, and then you cashed it in there.
That's incredible. I had no idea that was the case. I had absolutely no idea.
And that's why you got the Chancellor of the Exchequer. And the English don't know it. The English don't know it, but I mean, they've never asked why the actual English flag is actually it's a red cross. You know?
Yeah, is that?
It's a Templar cross. Yeah.
I had absolutely no idea that was the case, to be honest with you. I have one more quick question, Alan, if that's okay, then I'll take the answer off the air. It's to do with the Scottish Freemasonry.
Yeah.
I've read some books. I don't know if they're true or misinformation or disinformation or plain like lies, but I've heard that the Knights Templar, once they were obviously cast out of France, come over to Scotland and established the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. We know it's not really Scottish, we know that, but is that how it formed? And also, is the 33rd degree really the highest rank? Obviously it is in the public point of view, but is that really the highest rank?
No. The Scottish Rite of Freemasonry isn't Scottish. It actually is. It was given a charter by the Grand Orient Lodge of France. France, mind you, was given their charter by the English Grand Lodge. So, but it really came from France. and it was a more atheistic system than the English Lodge. They're all pals together, of course, but it was atheistic, and it was definitely socialistic or communistic in its whole from the very beginning. Benjamin Franklin was a member of it, but they called it the Scottish Rite of Freemasons because, and it didn't start off in Scotland either. The French sent a guy over to the USA, and he ended up in Charleston, South Carolina, and eventually they created a lodge there, and Albert Pike took it over, the actual Great Lodge for the Scottish Rite of Freemasons, and they spread it across the world from the USA. But it's not Scottish at all. In fact, a lot of the Scots are actually members of the English Grand Lodge. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that for a fact, actually. That's true. That's incredible. I don't actually know what books to read and what books not to read, because there's so much disinformation and actual lies as well. I don't know what to read, to be honest with you.
Yeah, there's so much tripe put out there. I mean, modern Freemasonry broke out in the 1700s. Now, there's always been the secret societies all down through the ages. Whenever you get rich men coming together, they always make their little society secret because they get rich by doing other folk in and profiting off of misadventure or wars and things. So they create secret societies. But we do know that the Templars were in Scotland by the evidence that was left behind, especially in Argyllshire, with the Templar graves and so on. And it's even thought they went over to the Americas, which I wouldn't be surprised if that isn't true. But they never did find their treasure. They had their own fleet of ships when they sailed out of France. And Philip the Fair was after them, of course, because they were taking over massive landed estates. When knights died off, they would send out their emissaries to try to talk to the widow, and she would often sign over the lands to the Templars. They were taking over huge chunks of Scandinavia, Scotland, England, and the rest of Europe, and paying no taxes. And financially they were becoming an incredibly powerful force to be reckoned with. Their symbol when they went on the sea changed when they were cast out of France to the skull and bones, the pirate flag.
Yeah. I think that's incredible. Absolutely incredible. But
you have to be careful, as I say. Remember too, whatever Masons will put out themselves, even in their own books, they'll have multiple meanings and often a lot of lies in it themselves, because the true secrets of Masonry are kept in higher Freemasonry. They don't care about the low stuff. The higher Freemasons, why do you think it's so secretive, I mean, if they're really a charitable institution, why do you have to have secrets kept from the public? Well, charity is just a front, but what you do know is it helps you get up the ladder, and every darn politician in Britain generally is a member of Freemasonry. It gets them up there, and then they can start scamming off the public purse, and nobody will clipe on them because they stand up. They're vowed to stand up for a brother, even in a court. So you have these born liars, basically, or at least they've initiated liars, put it that way. And they run the darn system from top to bottom. And you pretty well have to be a member almost in Scotland to get anywhere in the system.
Absolutely, Alan. You've nailed it again. But I'll certainly look into a lot more than that. But as I say, I can't read too much because there's so much disinformation.
I'll try and put a link up tonight to a series that was put out in Britain. It's on the internet, I think, on Freemasonry. And it shows you, you'll see all the scams that they pull on all the different county councils and so on, and it's just amazing. And the cops too, yeah.
Fantastic. I would appreciate that. Thanks very much for your help, Alan, as usual. It's a pleasure speaking to you.
Thanks for calling, yeah. Coordination between all the factors that create society as we know it today and shape the generations that are coming out of university now with all their greening. They truly are fanatical now. They've been radicalized. And they're all ready for the collectivist society and the total socialist system. So it's so perfect. There's definitely a big hierarchy, but there's also so many think tanks working at the top, and each think tank has its own specialist area, and then they all come together at the night. I'll try and grab there's Alan from Scotland. It's a long distance call hanging on there. Are you there, Alan? Hello.
Hi there, it's Adam actually. It's obviously the Scottish accent that's confused them.
It's confused them, okay, that's right.
Yeah, obviously it's a pleasure to speak to Alan as usual. I've got a question on the hierarchy of this elite. I mean, it's obvious there's certainly elite that's running the show. There's absolutely no doubt about that as far as I'm concerned. Anyone it's not conditioned can see that.
United Nations and all the different departments, and then all the countries signed agreements and put it into law, all from education to everything, from economics to education. So it's so incredibly vast. You'll never know exactly who's behind it. Sometimes they give little clues away about the clubs that are higher up there. Prince Charles has called himself at one time, mind you, a lot of crazy things as well, but not surprised from him. But he did say he belonged, and so on. And they did decide the future naturally because they dealt with all economies. They were deciding the future then of countries and deliberating who they should fund for war. If this country lost, could they pay back their debts and so on. Well, it's never really changed. So whenever you get economics and money and borrowing, you're always going to have the same bunch at the top. And they definitely are interbred, though. There's no doubt about it. And if they're not the top, they're much closer to it. They have to be. There's so much perfect.
A question on the hierarchy of the elite.
Yeah.
Do you think that the top of this elite is the heads of these world banking families?
They're definitely closer to they're definitely closer to the top. And you can find evidence that in Frankfurt, for instance, in the 1700s, and then later in the 1800s, the top bankers there and moneylenders for the nations did have a club, and they had their meetings. They elected their own chairman by themselves.